The next item I have is kind of a little bonus item. It's one that I think I've shown already in my video on my everyday carry-on, my EDC. And that is, I think it's Uncle Bill's tweezers. It's a little set of tweezers that have a little docking station, carrying case that keeps the tip protected, and it allows you to hook it onto a keychain or an EDC. And my experience has been that these are great to have. They're great to have for a lot of purposes. One of those obviously is what you use tweezers for. You got a sliver in your finger, you're trying to dig it out. As nice as a knife is to do some of those kinds of things, once you get in there, it's great to have something other than your fingernails, your teeth, to grab hold of that sliver and pull it out. Bee stings, ticks, all types of situations where you've got to get something out of you, these are great to have. In addition, they're also really great to have when you're trying to reach into something and get something out of it. You've got something clogged or those kinds of things. It's just an extra thing to have. Uncle Bill's tweezers, and I will go ahead and put a link to these. I think they are about $11. It's a little expensive for just a simple set of tweezers, it looks like, but they are precision tweezers. I've been carrying these for probably 4 or 5 years. I love having them on my EDC. I love having them with me. I've actually purchased them and put them on my wife's keychains. It's a great product to have with you, a great thing to have for all kinds of purposes, including first aid purposes. Go on to the next thing, and that is this. This is something I just recently purchased. It is from One Tigris, 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 and it is a shooting mat. It is, as you can see, not very big, but it's made out of high quality Cordura, and while it's rolled up this size, is obviously very packable, and it's something that is waterproof, that's made to go on the ground and lay between you and the ground. So it's about 6 feet tall and about 2.5 feet across. What that does for you is it gives you something to get between you and the ground. One of the things I was worried about when I opened it up the first time is whether I could roll it back up, and it rolls back up fairly easily and goes back in that original shape. And I then have a place where I can lay down, a great ground cloth if I'm in the going to have to spend the night out in the wilderness. It also is a something I can stick on the ground when I stop midday and don't want to sit on a wet ground or a wet log. It's just a nice little, essentially a ground cloth that I can use in multiple situations. It weighs about a pound, pound and a half, something like that. Not particularly heavy, but gives me a very useful item to get me something to put between me and the wet ground and the cold ground. I put some natural material underneath this. It's thick enough that pine needles and stuff aren't going to be poking me all night. It's got some tie down holes, some grommets that I can tack it out so I could pile up a bunch of leaves, pine needles, put this over the top to hold them in place, and I'd have a decent bed. That with my poncho over the top, I've got a good survival or overnight situation to keep me from being as uncomfortable. So, One Tigris shooting pad. I'll put a link on this one. This one's a little more expensive. I think they're about $40. You can look at the link on that, but a great resource to have with you. Doesn't take up much room. Go in the bottom of your day pack, and you've got something that's gonna keep you from soaking up a bunch of water when you're sitting on the ground. Now the next item is something I've only just recently learned. I'm going to put this over here so I've got a place to work. Only just recently seen. Now I had already purchased some of these coin towels, and I bought a big box of them some time ago and was just going to put them in my my various packs. They can be used for all sorts of things. We're going to go ahead and see if we can get one of them to open up here. Just add a little bit of water. I had a good friend in here just a few minutes ago, and we were talking about this pack has a couple hundred of them in them. In it, we were talking about just dumping a whole bottle of water in there to see what happened. That may be one of my fun videos in the future, but once I've put a little bit of water on that, it expands. Compare here. Beginning product, after I put, a tablespoon of water on that. And now that it's expanded, I unroll it, I open it up, and I have a moist towelette. A moist towelette that's fairly strong, very useful for cleaning my hands, for toilet paper, for cleaning up a mess in camp, wiping off my rifle, wiping off my scope, all of those kinds of things. And I knew about these, I had already bought those, but I saw something that really interested me, and that is these inexpensive match boxes, waterproof match containers, are just the right size that they will hold 7 of these little towelettes, these little pills. I'll go ahead and see if I counted right. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now I tried to put in an 8th one, and there's really room for it. The waterproof match container that I had a little mirror a signal mirror in here. This one doesn't. So I think I'm going to be able to put an 8th one in. We'll give it a try, but I know it'll hold 7. And with the 7, I can squeeze it down far enough that the O-ring on the match container, actually with the 8, I've got the 8 in there, that O-ring will keep it sealed so that it won't get wet and expand before I want it. I now have 8 pieces of paper towel that, if I'm careful, are sufficient to be enough to use for each time I use the restroom, and that have provided me with all kinds of other resources to clean and wipe down other items after I've harvested an animal, to clean up my hands. A great resource, especially when combined with this very inexpensive match container. So, small match container holds 7, 8, potentially 8 of these towelettes, weighs next to nothing, and gives me something that I can use to clean things up, including using the restroom, and take care of circumstances when needed. You know, as Mr. Miner, Clinton Miner's daddy, Niall Miner, always says, when mother calls, you ought to go. When nature calls, you got to go. It's when that time comes, you need to have the resource necessary to take care of the issues.